cameras give me 16 different angles of gray rock, steel, pine, and trouble. I sit in the control chair with my boots leaving dusty marks on the floor tile that no one has mopped in months. The bridge stretches across the gorge in a clean arc of concrete and rebar, the only road in or out of this side of the valley. The monitors show the far mouth of the pass, the tight switchbacks below, and the 2 crash gates that I can drop at the push of a button. Outside the glass, the wind rolls through the cables and the sound creeps into the room through every tiny gap, a low, steady hiss that never shuts up. I reach for the mug that has not held coffee in a long time, and remember halfway through the motion that it is empty. My hand keeps going anyway and rests on the chipped ceramic, fingers pinched a little too hard around the handle. The radio on the desk spits an occasional crackle, but no voices. Most days now it is like that. When the outbreak started for real, the channel would be full of shouting and engine noise and codes no one used right. Today, the bridge hums under me, and the generators down in the service room thrum through the floor. I used to come up here on snow days to reset sensors and curse at truckers who ignored chain rules. I had a supervisor who called this place Bridge Control 2 in emails and the Fishbowl in person. Now the name taped by the door is smeared, and there is no supervisor, and out past the glass, the first infected of the afternoon stumble into view along the lower service road. They are slower this high up, or maybe the cold air does something to the joints. Hard to know. The cameras do not zoom enough to show faces clearly anymore, which is a small mercy. A dull clang echoes up from somewhere under the deck. I stand right away, chair wheels squeaking. It is just the expansion joints settling again as the temperature drops. That is what I tell myself. I walk to the panel anyway and run my eyes over the indicator lights for the cable anchors, the hydraulic status, the gate locks. Everything shows green except the west shoulder barrier, which has been stuck in the half-down position since the day the maintenance crew drove away and did not come back. I slapped duct tape over that warning light 2 weeks ago because I was tired of staring at it. There is movement on camera 7. I lean in until my forehead almost touches the glass of the monitor. A pickup truck crawls around the last curve on the far side of the valley, tires rolling over broken rock and patches of leftover snow that never fully melted. The truck has a bed cover and a plywood board bolted over the rear window. I see 2 heads in the cab. The front crash gate on that side is down, striped arm across the lane, red lamp flashing quietly. No one from our side has gone out to the gate post in days. I grab the radio and thumb the transmit switch. Control to Canyon Camp, you seeing this? My voice sounds rough from not using it much. I wait and watch the truck nose up to the gate. A person with a dark jacket climbs out, looks small against the mountain gravel, and walks to the barrier arm. The radio stays dead. Maybe the camp is out foraging. Maybe the batteries in the repeater on Ridge Spur finally gave up. Maybe everyone is simply done talking. The driver on the screen reaches up, puts both hands on the gate arm, and shakes it once. I can tell from the way the arm moves that the lock pin is still engaged. The person steps back, looks up straight toward my control room window, even though the distance is huge. I know he cannot see me behind the tinted glass, but something about the way he turns his head makes me step away from the monitor, as if I have been caught staring. I lower my eyes, then force myself back to the panel. To let him through, I have to release the lock on gate far A and raise the arm. That part is simple. The trouble starts when you remember what else is out there. The lower right monitor, camera 9, shows the valley floor. Dozens of infected scatter around the burned-out tanker that blocks the service road, drawn days ago by the sound of an engine I never identified. Some move in slow circles, some bump into guardrails again and again, some wander toward the river and back. There are gaps between them, but not many. If I let the truck onto the bridge, then any noise, any panic, might pull the whole mess uphill in a single slow wave. The first time I opened the gates after the outbreak, it was for a yellow school bus with hand-painted signs in the windows begging for help. I still see the faces when I close my eyes. Kids in puffy coats crammed in the aisle, a teacher with a bandage on her forehead, a driver who kept one hand on the wheel and one on a baseball bat. I let that bus through. I also let through the chase pack that came up the grade after it, because the driver stalled halfway and no one thought about what noise carries in a valley. We lost 6 from the camp that night, including the woman who used to fix the radios. I click the intercom microphone for the far gate and speak into the empty room. "Pick up at North Gate. Do you copy?" The sound is routed through a weatherproof speaker down by the barrier. I see the man on the camera jump and spin toward the gate post. He cups a hand to his mouth and shouts something, lips moving wide. The camera has no audio. I read "please" and "family" and "camp" on his face. I also read a tightness in the shoulders I have seen on others who carried infection in the back seat and did not admit it until it was too late. "I cannot open unless I know you are clean," I say into the mic. "Windows down. Step back from the truck. Open all doors." The standard lines still come out of me even though the standard world is gone. On the monitor, the man hesitates. Then he yanks open the driver's door and waves to whoever is inside. A woman climbs out on the passenger side, holding a bundle close to her chest. I know what that shape means. Infant. Smaller risk in some ways, worse in others. If infection ever takes hold in someone that small, there will not be much warning. The woman keeps the bundle clutched tight. I force my tone flatter. "I need both of you away from the vehicle. Step to the white line. Put the child down so I can see, slowly." I know how this sounds. It sounds cold. Over the last weeks, I watched different versions of this scene play out at least 10 times. Each time, the choice is ugly. 2 weeks ago, I almost opened for a group from the West who looked half frozen and half starved. One kid had a gray patch under the collar. The kid kept scratching at it. I kept the gate locked. That group tried to ram it. The barrier held. The truck did not. On the live feed, the man argues with the woman, hands cutting through the air. She shakes her head, cradling the infant closer, shoulders hunched. My jaw tightens. We are wasting time. Down on the service road, the infected nearest the grade have started drifting toward the sound of raised voices. It starts with 1 or 2 heads turning, then feet dragging in the dirt. Patterns like that are burned into my brain now. I can tell when a crowd is about to cohere long before it actually does. "Listen," I say into the mic, keeping my tone level. "You shout again, that sound carries. You do not want what is down there coming up. Put the child on the hood where I can see. Just for a moment. Then we talk about opening." It feels wrong to turn a family into shapes on a monitor. It also feels wrong to picture the camp behind me, 29 people counting on that bridge staying controlled. In this new world, wrong and necessary overlap in ways that keep a person awake, even when the body is tired. The woman finally edges forward to the front of the truck and lays the bundle on the dusty hood. She peels back the blanket with movements that suggest she would rather be doing anything else. I lean close to the screen. Small, round face, cheeks flushed from cold. No visible bites, no strange discoloration, no cloudy eyes. The baby's mouth works in a slow, frustrated way, but there is no crying. Most parents would be relieved. I am not. When infants are feverish, silence can mean as much as screaming. Then I see it. A small, irregular cluster of pale spots along the neck, just above the collarbone. Could be a rash from cheap detergent. Could be something worse. There is no lab here and no test and no way to be sure. The man steps closer to the hood, blocking the view for a moment, then pulls the blanket back up before I can get a clearer look. He picks the child up, holding it close again. On the camera, his face is turned slightly toward the lens, and I spot a smear of dried something along his jawline that is not dirt. My hand hovers over the gate control. The button to raise the barrier is a simple square of worn plastic. My finger leaves a faint half-moon in the dust next to it as I press down, then stop a hair from contact. I move instead to the other control, the one Reese wired in before he left with the last state convoy. That one triggers the bridge deck siren. It is not much, just a short blast meant to warn workers when traffic is about to start. In this new world, it has a different use. I press the siren. Out on the bridge, a horn wails once. On the monitor, the man flinches and looks up again, searching for whoever did that to him. On camera 9, the infected on the valley floor freeze in their slow drifting. Heads turn in jagged unison toward the sound. A couple stumble, then pivot. Within seconds, the whole loose scattering of bodies begins to orient on the slope that leads toward the road. It works every single time. Back in the truck, I say through the intercom. Now, reverse. You bring that engine closer to the grade, and you will have a wall of those things between you and any safe camp within miles. Go back down, follow the marker stones, and look for the painted antenna. There is a forestry cabin with a deep cellar. No one here can take you in. If you ram the gate, you will not make it across. I promise you that. I keep my tone flat and steady because I remember what panic sounds like from up here and how fast people down below catch it. For a second, I think he might actually listen. The man turns to look down at the valley behind him. The woman clutches the child tighter, watching him. The camera picks up a slight tremor in her hands as she adjusts her grip. The man seems to curse under his breath, and then reluctantly moves to the driver's door. He hesitates again, one hand on the handle, and looks up at the control room one last time. Then he climbs in. A moment later, the reverse lights flare weakly against the mountain afternoon, and the pickup begins creeping backward down the grade. I track it on the monitors as it inches away from the gate. The infected on the valley floor are still starting their slow migration uphill, drawn by memory of that siren's echo. The truck's engine noise is low, but not low enough. Some heads pivot toward it. The group splits, half move toward the old burned tanker, half toward the road. If the truck gets enough distance before the crowd reaches the hairpin, it might slip away along the eastern track. There is a chance. Not a big one, but bigger than trying to cross this bridge into a locked camp that barely has food for those already here. I step back from the panel and rub my eyes with the heel of my hand. The control room suddenly feels small, air heavy with dust and old sweat, and the faint tang of the gasoline cans stacked by the emergency door. This routine, this dance at the gate, has played out enough times that the script lives in my head without effort. It does not get easier. Folks down in camp speak about me in that careful way, the way you use for someone who holds the keys to something important, and might snap if pushed too hard. I pretend not to hear. The radio cracks at last. A burst of static, then a familiar voice pushing through it. Bridge Control, this is Canyon Camp 3. Mason, you up there ignoring us again? Lex's tone walks the edge between joking and tired, same as always. I grab the handset. Relief sneaks into my answer before I can flatten it. Control here. You are late on your check-in, I say. Thought I would have to start entertaining myself by talking to the cameras. I glance at the monitors again. The pickup is already a tiny shape on the curve. The infected trail below it in a loose tail. Lex exhales hard enough that the radio picks it up. We had a problem with the south fence. Couple of wanderers rolled in from the creek bed. Rory handled it, but it put us behind. How is our front door? Front door still shut, I answer. One truck turned away, no breach. Crowd density on the floor is moderate and increasing. I use the siren to redirect. In about an hour, we will have another cluster at the base of the grade. We need that plan of yours finished before that happens. The last part comes out sharper than I meant. Lex hears it anyway. The explosives are ready, she says after a short pause. We finished packing the west anchor cavity this morning. We can bring down one lane when you give the word. You sure about this, Mason? Once we do it, this valley is sealed for real. No in, no out, not without ropes or wings. I look out through the thick glass at the bridge, cables rising up in graceful lines, deck stretching solid and familiar over the gorge. I have driven this span in hail, ice, heat, and fog. I have walked it during maintenance closings, boots ringing on the expansion joints. The idea of breaking it on purpose, even partially, still sits in my stomach like a stone. We both know why we talked about it, I say. Every time someone comes up here and begs for passage, we roll the dice. If infection ever rides in hidden, the camp behind me is finished. We cannot afford that risk forever. Lex lowers her voice on the other end. I can picture her standing in the camp office, hand over the mouthpiece, trying to keep the conversation from carrying to the bunkhouse. We have 29 mouths, Mason. Seeds for maybe 3 seasons if we stretch. Filter cartridges for 1 more year. Every new person we add hits those numbers. You are not wrong. I just do not know if I can tell someone face to face that we blew the bridge that could have saved them. You will not have to, I say quietly. I am the one with the detonator. My eyes slide to the small black case sitting on the corner of the desk, wire snaking from it down through the floor to charges wrapped around the west lane support. Reese did that part too, muttering about sheer strength and blast radii while I held the flashlight. Then he hugged me once in a quick, awkward way and climbed into the convoy truck without looking back. He did not live to see the valley wall off. I sometimes think that is a gift. Before Lex can answer, Camera 12 throws a movement alert. A small red icon flashes in the corner of the screen. I flick my eyes over it out of habit, then stop. On the far ridge, above the old quarry road, a line of vehicles moves in tight procession. Dust trails behind them, drawn out in a faint banner. I count 4, maybe 5 trucks. Hard to tell from this distance, but they keep formation in a way that says organized group, not random survivors. I do not recognize the paint patterns. Lex, I say, keeping my voice steady. We have company from the east. Organized. More than 3 vehicles. Can you get someone on the ridge tower and confirm? She swears under her breath, catches herself, then regains control. On it, Rory is closest. Hold on. The radio goes quiet for a minute. I watch the convoy wind through the switchbacks on the far side, heading for the bridge with the steady confidence of people who believe they have a right to cross. That is new. Most groups creep up the grade like it might bite them. This convoy moves with purpose. The radio crackles again. A deeper male voice joins. Mason, this is Rory. I am on the tower. Confirm visual. 5 trucks, mix of pickups and 1 larger flatbed, all with welded cages. I count at least 10 figures in the beds, maybe more inside. They are armed. I swallow a dry taste and look at the bridge's status lights. All locks show green. The central barrier is up. Gate near side is down. The deck itself is intact. No visible damage from here. Armed how? I ask. Rifles for sure. Some kind of launchers on the flatbed. Hard to tell the type. Looks like they have painted over markings. They have flags too. Black with some white symbol. I do not get a good view of it. Rory's tone is wary. In the camp, he acts relaxed most of the time, joking with the kids and carving little wooden pieces for the shared games. On the radio, he tightens up. That is when you know he is taking something seriously. Let me know if you see anything like infected chained to the vehicles, I say. The words taste wrong, but we have heard stories over this last month. Some groups use the undead as bait or distraction, sending them ahead like disposable scouts. Humanity does not have a good track record when it comes to new tools. No chains that I can see, Rory answers. The infected on the floor are reacting to the engines, though. We are about to get a mess of them moving toward the grade, whether that convoy cares or not. I set the radio down and move to the blast case. The key hangs around my neck on a thin cord that has left a faint mark in my skin from weeks of constant contact. I fit it into the lock, turning it once. 2 small indicator lights glow amber. 1 lane. That is the deal we made. Blow 1 lane, leave the other intact, but narrow and broken enough that only someone brave and very careful could cross on foot. No vehicle could use it. The valley would be functionally blocked, but not sealed in the absolute sense. There is comfort in that technicality. Not much, but some. The convoy slows as it approaches the far gate where the pickup sat minutes ago. The lead truck pulls up close to the barrier and stops. Several figures jump down from the beds, boots hitting gravel in near unison. They wear mismatched gear, some in hunting jackets, some in pieces of police surplus. One in what looks like a firefighter's coat stripped of reflective tape. A tall man with short hair and a dark vest walks straight to the gate post and looks up in a way that tells me he knows there is a camera near my angle. I flip on the intercom again. This crossing is closed, I say, letting my voice carry through the speakers down there. Turn around. Valley is at capacity. Go back the way you came. The official phrasing feels strange in my mouth, but sometimes formality helps keep a wall in place inside too. The tall man grins up at the camera as if I just greeted him by name. He speaks, lips moving clearly. This camera does not have audio, but I have learned to read basic phrases. We are not going back is one of them. Another is open the gate. He uses both. He also points behind him at the trucks. Several rifles lift slightly, not aiming yet, but reminding me that this conversation is not between equals. You heard the broadcast, I say. We put a loop on the community channel weeks ago, repeating information about the valley's status, food stores, infection protocols. Reese's voice on that recording still sounds raw from sleep loss. This valley cannot accept more people. Turn around. There is nothing for you here. The tall man laughs, a short barking movement of his shoulders that I can see even without audio. He gestures at the infected starting to cluster at the bottom of the grade, some already shuffling onto the first incline. He raises both arms wide, embracing the whole scene, then points down at the gate as if the conclusion is obvious. He is saying, without words, that we need him and his armed group more than he needs us, that he can help us deal with what is below in exchange for entry. It is not the worst offer in the world. It is also not one we can afford. A memory pushes forward without permission. The first days, when law still pretended to exist, we had a state police captain come up here with 12 troopers, lights flashing, sirens screaming through the canyon. He ordered the gate opened in the name of emergency management. We let him in. Within a week, those troopers had taken over every scrap of authority in the camp, pushed people off food lines, and commandeered weapons. It ended badly and quietly one night at the far tree line. People still do not talk about it. We buried too many uniforms. This is not a negotiation, I say into the intercom. You have 2 minutes to begin reversing. After that, I activate countermeasures that will put you in as much danger as what is climbing behind you right now. This is your only warning. My voice shakes on the last words, but I force the rest through steady. The man's smile fades. He looks up at the bridge span, then at the control room windows. I know he cannot see me clearly, but some people can sense where eyes are. He raises one hand and curls his fingers into a fist. Behind him, a person on the flatbed moves to the launcher mounted near the cab. It is not military standard issue, but it is close enough. I see a tube, a sight, hands practiced on the controls. My mind does a quick, ugly calculation. Range, elevation, angle. Lex, I say into the radio, not taking my eyes off the screen. Get everyone into the inner shelters. Now, Rory, if you have anything with range that can hit a man on a flatbed, get ready. Rory's reply comes sharp. On it. Do we expect them to fire at the bridge? That or me, I answer. Either way, we do not let them cross. I open the blast case fully and rest my fingers on the detonator toggle. The bridge hums under my feet, alive with tension that has nothing to do with steel. Outside, the first infected reach the lower part of the grade, pulling themselves up the incline with slow, relentless steps. They are far enough away that there is still time. Not much. Enough for one choice. The tall man at the gate gives a final, exaggerated shrug, then swings his hand down in a clear signal. The person on the flatbed launcher shifts position. The tube rises a few degrees, aimed not at the camp, but at the main cable support tower. A shot there could send shrapnel through the deck or drop part of the span. He's trying to take the bridge by force, counting on structural damage to be partial, repairable, and better than being stuck on the far side with the infected. He is playing engineer with no training. Last chance, I say into the mic, more for myself than for him. He does not look up this time. The launcher coughs, a small flash blooming at the tube's mouth. The projectile arcs upward toward my side of the gorge, smoke trail curling. In that split second, the bridge is both whole and broken in my head, and I understand that the decision is already made. I just have to catch up to it. I slam the detonator toggle down. The charges go off under the west lane in a deep, crackling roar that comes up through my boots before the sound reaches my ears. The deck under that lane bucks, concrete shearing from rebar. The main cable on that side snaps with a noise that belongs in nightmares, whipping away into the mist with lethal speed. Through the thick control room glass, I watch the western half of the bridge deck sag, then drop in a huge slab, ripping away from the intact east lane and tearing a V-shaped gap in the span. The projectile from the launcher hits twisted steel instead of clean tower. It explodes in a spray of dust and chunks that blast outward along the gorge. Shards ping off the control room exterior, one thudding into the wall near the window, hard enough to throw hairline cracks in the inner glass. I duck by instinct, hand still gripping the detonator so hard my knuckles ache. On the far side, the shockwave knocks several of the armed men flat. One slides toward the broken edge but manages to grab a guardrail and hang on. The tall man staggers back, staring at the space where half the road used to be. Between him and me yawns a jagged gap, filled with dust and hanging wires. The remaining east lane clings to the near side like a narrow ledge, too thin for any truck and barely wide enough for single-file foot traffic. The infected, who had started up the grade, stop for a second, confused by the sudden noise and shifting ground. Then the new sounds, screaming and grinding metal, draw even more of them. They swell around the base of the grade, piling up behind one another. The path to the bridge from that side has turned into a funnel, and that funnel ends in shattered concrete and air. If the armed group decides to stand their ground there, they will be caught between the gap and the climb. The radio explodes with sound. Lex shouting orders to get everyone into cover. Rory swearing in a controlled, almost calm way as he reports what he sees. Someone else crying in the background. A high, thin sound cut off quickly as a door slams. I answer in short, clipped phrases, eyes still scanning the monitors. West lane is gone. East lane intact. Structural integrity of near side stable. No immediate threat to camp. The words sound clinical, distant. It is easier that way. On the far side, the tall man gathers himself and starts waving his arms at his people, pointing back down the grade. He might be ordering retreat or regrouping. Hard to tell from this distance. A couple of rifle barrels swing up in my direction with unsteady aim. They may fire. The control room is reinforced, but nothing is perfect. I step back from the window just in case. At the same time, a part of me notes that his posture has lost that easy arrogance. He misread the situation and knows it now. The seconds stretch. One of the men on the flatbed fires a couple of rounds at the control room. The bullets smack into concrete and ricochet off, leaving chalky scars. No penetration. The glass holds. I feel more than hear the impacts and force myself not to flinch. If they think they can scare me into lowering gates or offering a deal, they are wrong. We already made the only deal that matters. The infected reach the second bend on the grade. From the cameras, it looks like a dark, moving band wrapping slowly up the hillside. Some stumble and fall, dragging others with them, but enough keep coming. The engines of the convoy trucks rever. After a moment of rapid, chaotic gesturing, the tall man climbs into the lead vehicle. The convoy begins backing down the grade, drivers struggling with three-point turns on narrow, damaged asphalt. One truck clips the guardrail and sends a spray of gravel into the air. With the bridge gap now yawning in front of them and the infected behind, the armed group is in trouble. Part of me feels a hard, cold satisfaction at that. Another part takes no pleasure in watching anybody cornered, even people who tried to blow apart the only structure holding this valley together. Both parts live in the same body now. That is another change I am still learning to live with. Mason, Lex says quietly on the radio. Once the immediate shouting in camp dies down, what did you do? What we agreed, I answer. I look out at the ruined half of the bridge, dust still drifting off the broken edge. The valley is blocked. No one is driving in anymore. A few might walk, if they are careful and smart, and quiet enough to cross that strip and dodge what gathers below. But trucks like those? I shake my head, even though she cannot see it. Not a chance. Silence rides the channel for a long moment. I can hear faint activity behind Lex, people moving bedding into the inner rooms, doors closing, kids being hushed. Finally, she speaks. We just cut ourselves off from the rest of the state. The state cut itself off when the last helicopter flew east and did not come back, I say softly. We just admitted it. I step back to the console and check the structural sensors again. Numbers scroll past in a calm, unbothered way. The bridge does not care about politics or ethics. It cares about load, stress, temperature. In that sense, I envy it. My job now is simple in theory. Maintain what is left. Keep watch on the gap. Decide who, if anyone, can risk crossing on foot. In practice, that simplicity is wrapped in layered choices that come with faces attached. The armed convoy continues its awkward retreat, backing further down the grade, away from the broken edge. On the valley floor, the infected press more thickly around the base, drawn by engine noise and the smell of exhaust. One of the trucks stalls and refuses to restart for a full 30 seconds. By the time it roars back to life, the creatures are close enough that one reaches the bumper and grabs on. The driver guns the engine, dragging the figure along until it slips free, pieces of clothing tearing away. There is no clear blood from here, just the knowledge that every contact carries risk. Eventually, the dust cloud marking the convoy fades into the trees beyond the old quarry road. The infected, robbed of a clear sound to follow, mill around in restless confusion at the base of the grade. Some start back toward the tanker wreck on the service road. Others fan out along the riverbank. The pressure near the bridge drops. For now, it will build again. It always does. I sink back into the control chair. The fabric is worn smooth where my shoulders meet the backrest. I pick up the empty mug, turn it in my hands, and set it down. Outside, the light starts to thin as the sun slides behind the western peaks. Shadows stretch across the broken span, reaching from intact lane to jagged gap. Soon the temperature will fall fast. Sometimes, in the coldest hours, the infected slow down enough that a brave person can slip past them. That is when the desperate ones usually come. Lex comes back on the radio, calmer now. We counted heads. Everyone in the camp is fine. Some of the kids are scared. We told them you were testing earthquake safety. There is a flicker of humor in her voice that does not quite land, but still helps. You holding up? I consider lying. Then I decide we passed that point weeks ago. I am here, I say. The bridge is half here. That is enough for today. We will send up a hot meal before dark, she says. Mara has been working magic with the canned beans again. Hang in there, Mason. The phrase, hang in there, used to annoy me, back when hanging in there meant dealing with paperwork or a bad commute. Now it has teeth. I nod anyway, even though she cannot see. Copy that, I say. Tell Mara to go easy on the mystery spice this time. The radio clicks off. The control room returns to its usual soundtrack. Wind outside, faint generator hum below, occasional creaks from steel adjusting to cooling air. I stand and walk to the window, resting my palm against the glass. Beyond it, the valley stretches out in shades of gray and green, the river cutting through the middle like a scar that at least has clean edges. The broken end of the west lane juts out over empty space, rebar exposed like ribs on a carcass. I pull my hand back from the glass at that thought, annoyed at my own brain for drifting into unhelpful comparisons. From up here, the camp is a small cluster of roofs tucked into the trees behind the ridge. Smoke curls from one chimney, a thin, careful line so as not to draw unwanted attention. Somewhere down there, Mara stirs beans. Lex marks numbers on a clipboard. Rory checks the fence again. Kids play quietly in the central yard with makeshift toys. None of them can see the gap in the bridge clearly from their angle. That is on purpose. Even in this world, some distances matter. Night comes on in layers. I move through the usual routine, check fuel levels for the generators, confirm backup batteries are charging, test the manual locks on the control room doors. I walk the narrow corridor behind the main console twice, listening for any unfamiliar scrape or grind that might mean something broke loose during the blast. Nothing obvious jumps out. The building is old but solid, anchored into the rock back when roads were built for storms and heavy trucks instead of saving money. That old overbuilding is one of the reasons I am still alive. As the sky deepens, I flip the cameras into low light mode. The monitors shift to grainy monochrome. The infected on the valley floor turn into pale shapes, drifting through darker background. Across the broken span, the far side grade lies quiet. No sign of the convoy. Either they made it out of reach, or they did not. I will probably never know which. That is another habit I am trying to accept. Letting unanswered questions sit without picking at them until they bleed. My dinner arrives in the lift basket that runs up the maintenance shaft from camp. Mara sends an extra biscuit, slightly burned on one edge. That small imperfection feels almost luxurious. I eat at the console, eyes never fully leaving the screens. Between bites, I jot notes on a clipboard. Time of convoy arrival, type of vehicles, estimated head count, direction of retreat. Recording things helps. The world feels less random when you can look back and see patterns, even ugly ones. Around what used to be 9 in the evening, the cold thickens. The infected slow. Some sag against guardrails, temporarily still. I use the pause to run one more structural diagnostic on the bridge, sending a test signal through the tension sensors on the remaining lane. Readouts come back within acceptable range. The east lane will hold for careful foot traffic, as planned. I adjust the outer floodlights to cast the brightest possible wash over that narrow strip, more for my own peace of mind than anything else. That is when camera 3 picks up a new movement. A single figure on the far side, creeping along the guardrail where the road meets the broken edge. Small frame, bundled in layers of clothing. The person moves with exaggerated care, testing each step before committing weight. I zoom in. The image grain fuzzes details, but I can tell it is a teenager at most, maybe younger. No convoy, no truck, just one stubborn shape inching along the mountain's new scar. Lex, I say softly into the radio, eyes not leaving the monitor. We have someone on foot, attempting the crossing. Her reply comes sleepy and quick, as if she had just started drifting off. Alone? Alone, I confirm. Small, could be 14, 15, maybe less. No visible weapon, no escort, no convoy nearby. I swallow, throat suddenly dry. Looks like someone who either slipped through or got left behind. Silence follows for a heartbeat that I do not count. Then Lex says, "You know the protocol." I do. We wrote it together, late one night with a half-burned candle between us and maps spread out on the table. The protocol says that solo miners who reach the bridge on foot, unarmed, and without clear signs of infection, are to be given a chance, with strict quarantine on entry. It also says that the bridge master, that would be me, has the authority to override in exceptional circumstances. The word exceptional has done a lot of heavy lifting this past month. I zoom further. The teenager pauses at the gap where the west lane sheared away, looks down into the darkness, then edges sideways onto the narrow remaining strip of east lane that connects far side to near. Arms spread slightly for balance. The kid moves 1 foot at a time. Even from here, I can tell the wind is shoving at that small body. A hat almost blows off. The kid grabs it at the last second, pressing it down tight. There is a stubborn set to the shoulders that I recognize from the mirror some mornings. Keep quarantine shed A ready, I tell Lex. If this kid makes it across, we follow the book. You sure? She asks. No judgment, just confirmation. No, I answer honestly. But we wrote that rule on purpose. If we throw it out the first time it hurts, why did we write it at all? On the screen, The child slips once, foot skidding on loose gravel. A small shower of rock tumbles over the edge into the dark. The kid drops to hands and knees, clinging to the lane, then slowly crawls the next few feet on all fours. My own fingers grip the edge of the console so hard the skin pales. I do not say anything. I do not breathe loudly. Superstition creeps in at times like this. Any extra noise feels like a jinx. Below, a few infected stir, reacting to whatever sound filters down, but most remain slow. The cold has wrapped around their joints like invisible bands. The tension tightens in my shoulders anyway. One wrong move up there, one piece of spalling concrete, and the kid will be falling through a long space filled with broken steel. I do not let myself picture the landing. Minute by minute, the kid clears the worst of the gap and reaches the more stable part of the east lane closer to my side. I feel a small, unwelcome spark of pride at the determination on display. Survival here is not pretty or noble most days, but sometimes it looks like this. One small person refusing to stop moving forward, even when the world has literally fallen out from under him. I hit the intercom. "Kid on the bridge," I say, voice firm but not harsh. "Do not run. Keep coming straight. When you reach the gate, stop. Hands visible. We have food and heat, but you follow every instruction I give if you want through. Understand?" The teenager startles, head jerking up toward the unseen speaker. He nods once, a quick, sharp movement, then resumes moving, this time standing but still cautious. I note the lack of limp, the way his coat sits right on the shoulders, the absence of visible wounds. None of it means he is clear, but it all helps. By the time he reaches the near gate, my own breathing has settled into something closer to normal. I lower the small internal barrier between my side of the control room and the stairwell that leads down to the gate corridor. I still should not leave the console for long, but this is part of the job too. I lock the blast case, pocket the key, and grab the handheld thermal scanner from its hook. On the way down the stairs, the concrete walls feel closer than usual. My boots echo in the narrow space. I pause at the heavy door that looks out onto the near gate and check the peephole. The kid stands exactly where instructed, on the white line painted back when this was just a checkpoint for oversized vehicles. He holds his hands out a little from his body, fingers splayed. His face is pinched and pale, but his eyes track the door in a clear, alert way. I crack the door and step into the small space between inner and outer gates. Cold air knifes in around us. I keep my shotgun slung but ready, barrel down, safety on. I do not point it at him. He has seen enough barrels today. "What is your name?" I ask, keeping my tone even. He hesitates, then says, "Eli." The word comes out hoarse. "I came from the east, from the ranch by the Red Water Tower." I know that tower. Everyone in the valley does. It is a landmark you can see from miles away. "How many were at the ranch?" I ask. "4, he answers. "Now 1. His mouth tightens. I checked them all. None got up again. I buried them. There is no bragging in his voice, just a flat reporting of facts that no one his age should have to recite. I nod once. "Any contact with bites or blood?" "No bites," he says. "Some blood. I washed as much as I could. We had bleach. I did what the radio said." He looks past me toward the faint glow of camp lights up the hill. "Is it true you have a doctor?" "We have a nurse and a mechanic who both read more books than is probably healthy," I answer. "We will check you out. Quarantine first. 24 hours minimum, more if any symptoms show. You break the rules in there, you go back across on your own. Do you understand?" He nods again, eyes serious. I can follow rules, he says. I just want somewhere that is not empty. I scan him with the thermal device, watching for irregular heat patches that might mark an early infection response. His temperature shows a little elevated, but that could be from the climb and the cold. Nothing screams urgent. I step back and hit the inner gate control. The metal barrier slides open with a reluctant grind. "Welcome to Canyon Camp," I say quietly as he steps through. The words feel strange after the day we had, but I say them anyway. Stay close. We go straight to quarantine. No detours. He glances back once at the broken bridge behind us, then up at the control room window glowing faintly above. "You blew that on purpose?" he asks, not accusing, just curious. "Yes," I answer. No point in softening it. To keep what is behind you from swallowing what is ahead of you. Eli nods slowly, as if filing that away into a new internal map. Then he turns his attention forward and follows me up the path toward the camp lights. The wind at our backs carries the distant scrape and moan of frustrated infected at the base of the grade. But the broken span between us and them feels, for the first time today, like more than just destruction. It feels like a line drawn and held. In the morning, I will go back up to the control room, check the cameras, watch the patterns, and be ready to make the next hard call. For now, as the bridge settles into its new shape and the valley adjusts around it, I walk with one more living person at my side and let that small fact carry a little weight against all the rest.